some people will still show up. But I'm going to start in on my stuff quick here so that we can get to Karen Sue as quickly as possible. Welcome to everybody. We're here talking about health and wellness all life long, and Karen Sue is going to share about that. I'll do a brief introduction of Karen Sue, but she'll mostly introduce herself. We're here on behalf of ALOA, and I'm an executive director for ALOA. Started with them July of last year, so coming up on a year. And we shifted our focus in ALOA. In the past, we were focused a lot on events, day-long, week-long events. And we really shifted our focus to congregations these days. That's where the action is. That's where the generations come together. And that's where the congregations can impact their community. So if you go to the web page, let me just quickly share the web page. Hang on, I got to go to share. I want to just do a couple things to share that. You should see our web page. And in the very middle of that web page, it talks about a blueprint for older adult ministry in congregation. If you click on that, that takes you, next page is a YouTube video. It's me talking, apologize for that, you're stuck with me, but it's about, I don't know, 6-7 minutes or something like that. It just kind of gives you the overview of what we do on the website, the resources we have made available to congregations. So check that out, and then I'm going to go back a page because underneath that, click here to sign up to receive a consultation, a free consultation on older adult ministry. Now, by virtue of signing up to this webinar, you're in the mix on that. What we do is we have Zoom webinars, Zoom meetings, I should say. They're not a webinar format, they're more of a meeting format, more interactive. We've had a couple of those. We got one scheduled late this month again. There are ways that small numbers of people, no more than 4 to 5 congregations, no more than 10 people, can do some reacting with each other, interacting with each other about what's currently happening in their congregation and how we can be helpful in ALOA to ramp up and get a more energetic and more intentional about older adult ministry. So and I should say this, once a month then, we will pick from among the names we've received in that month. So this is the month of May still. One person, their church will receive an on-site visit from me at our expense. We just received a grant to make this happen. So I'll come to your church for a day, meet with whoever leaders you want to have in this meeting, and then provide an outreach event around some of the ministries that we do in the evening as a way of kind of giving you a taste of what we do in ALOA. So that's interesting for you to consider, and you're in the running, as I say, because you signed up. Next webinar is going to be June 12th. Same format, sign up on the web page, same place you signed up last time. This time it's going to be on seniors in transition. So one of the 5 ministry areas we have is health and wellness, which we're talking about today. One of the other ministry areas is the move from independence to interdependence or dependence that happens for almost all of us at some point or other. This is an introduction to an 8-week class, the best I've seen on helping people be proactive instead of reactive in that decision process. That's on the 12th of June, Wednesday. Then I don't have the date yet, but we have a parish nurse going to continue the discussion about health and wellness. So Karen Sue's going to work on that today. We're going to have another parish nurse, June, probably this last 2 weeks of June, talking about health and wellness in congregations from her perspective as a parish nurse. And so that'll be another thing you can do. And then there's a consultation. When you go to the webinar page, you can find the consultation page as well and to sign up there. Now, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and back to here. So format-wise in Zoom, you can see myself and you'll see Karen Sue when she starts talking. You at the bottom of your screen should have a Q&A button, a chat button, and then of course you can control well, maybe that might be all you have. But the Q&A is if you have questions as Karen Sue is sharing, write them, type them into the Q&A. I see those, and if there are questions we can answer right away, I'll break in and Karen Sue will do that. If not, she's got a couple spots during the course of our time where we'll just pause and get at questions. So that's one thing. Chat, there's a chat button. I'm going to use the chat button to give you information. So we're going to send a lot of links your way. You'll see the links on the screen from the PowerPoint that Karen Sue is going to show. But I will additionally put those into the chat button that you will then, you can click on if you want to. But that whole chat window will show up in the recording as a file. We're recording this right now. This will be made available for those that couldn't get here at the time, the allotted time, along with the chat button as well. So I think that's about it. So I'm going to unmute you, Karen Sue, and you should be ready to go. Karen Sue's a good friend. We met, I don't know how many years ago, Karen Sue, at a Women's Leadership Institute event in Mequon. And
actually, we met before that. You probably just don't remember when you were the Fitz family
juggler.
Oh,
way back. That goes way back. That's right. I forgot about that in Wisconsin. Yeah.
Yes.
And so, yeah, we've had a long connection. Karen Sue's passionate about what she does. She's skilled at what she does, and she understands the congregational world, the world of churches. So, Karen Sue, I'm going to give it over to you. Do your thing, and you'll introduce a little bit about who you are and what you bring to the table, etc.
Okay, let me get going here. All right, am I up? Am I good?
Yeah.
Okay, I am super excited to be talking to you about my passion and also my profession. And I am used to talking and interacting with a group of people, so this is a whole new experience talking to my little itty bitty camera. And so I want to tell you that I put pictures of y'all, I mean, all y'all. I've moved to Texas now, and I know that y'all is one person, but all y'all is everybody. So I have pasted pictures on my computer by my camera. But anyway, one thing that I would like to find out is where you are from. We recently moved from the cold north to warm Texas, and we are loving it. But for example, on April 27th, there were 4 inches of snow in Janesville this year, and it was 70s and beautiful blue sky sunny day here in Texas. Those are 2 very different environmentally as far as exercise programs. So I would love to hear from where you're at. So anyway, to get started, we're going to talk about health and wellness. My background, I went to Concordia College. Well, it was Concordia University. It became Concordia University by that time in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And thanks to some very discerning professors, they helped me realize that, yes, I was called to church work, but it was outside the walls of the church. And so I ended up going and getting my exercise physiology degree from Central Michigan University. I have had a variety of work experiences in a number of different places. I set up a cardiac rehab program in Dothan, Alabama, which is definitely the deep south. And got to have the experience of doing cardiac rehab in a number of different places, helped set up a medical weight management program, and got to be part of a National Dairy Council research project. So a lot of really cool things. Also along the way, I've done a lot of different motivational speaking. And so last year, God called us mercifully out of the north to Texas, to Austin, Texas. And we were super thrilled because our youngest son got to go to Concordia High School. And he is ecstatic to be there. It has been an awesome year. However, yesterday when he was riding his bike along the trail, he was not as ecstatic about this. And he told me, he's like, Mom, my heart rate was racing as he was about to run over the snake. And I said, well, you could only imagine what that poor heart rate of the snake was doing as you were about to run over it. And then we go to school, and guess what? The kids have gathered a snake there, and they said, oh, this is the snake like Sam saw yesterday. But I am not a snake lover, but I love those snakes because they are rat snakes and they eat rat mice. So little history about being here. Okay, today my goal is to equip and encourage you in health and wellness, and we're going to have an emphasis on exercise so that you become more fit and healthy personally, so you, also your congregation. And of course, in your congregation, no matter where you are, you're going to have older adults. And also in your community. So in your community, there are also older adults, but here's the lovely thing about older adults. One of the things that they have sometimes, often, is time and wisdom and mentorship. And we're going to talk about how with exercise, we can incorporate all those things as we share the love of Jesus Christ. So I'm going to start kind of with you. Do you feel like you lead a stressful lifestyle? Maybe your spouse or other loved ones complain you don't spend enough time with them. Maybe you feel like you're getting old fast. And maybe there are health concerns, blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, and these may be some of the same things for some of your older adults. So obviously, exercise is so important for these key things. And one, stressful. We know that exercise can help manage stress, but also the effects on the body as it mitigates some of what happens with stress on our body. We're going to talk about time and how do you spend time getting your exercise done. And one of the things that I love is being able to use the time that you exercise to do other things you like too with your family members. My mom and dad were such an incredible example. My dad was a pastor, 6 kids. Every day, he and my mom would go for a walk, typically about an hour. If he had an evening meeting, he'd do it in the afternoon. If he didn't have an evening meeting, usually it was right after supper. All of us were invited to come along with them. And I look back and I realize how for their marriage, for their stress, just for our family life, and for their physical health, how important that was. So strongly, strongly encourage you to think about that. Also, do you feel like you're getting old fast? I cannot tell you the number of patients that I work with who they're like old, and some of them are even like in their 30s or 40s. Once they start exercising, they realize they're not really old. They are just simply out of shape. And so I know that you know, as a church leader, particularly if you're a pastor, DCE, whatever church worker, it is hard to find that time. We're going to talk about that a little bit more, but it is important to do. So actually there was a very large billions of claims to Blue Cross Blue Shield. The number one health impact was hypertension, high blood pressure. And we know that, once again, exercise can help manage high blood pressure. So it's very important. We're going to talk more about that. Okay, why exercise? Well, you know, we are lovingly invited by Jesus to join him in this walk of loving God. And part of that is with all your strength, he says. That's that physical stewardship. And so are we willing to take care of our bodies as physical stewardship, as a response to his love for us? Can we then respond with this physical stewardship of our body? Why? Well, think about the garden, Adam and Eve. God didn't have to tell them to walk, obviously. There were no washing machines. There were no Facebook or Netflix or things to call them to sit around, okay? So they were without technology and by nature active in the garden. Think about Jesus. Once again, he wasn't telling his disciples, get out there and exercise, because they were walking, they were rowing, they were fishing. Their whole life was active. That was the way life was. Okay, jump forward to the 1880s. I loved reading the Little House and the Prairie books to my kids. And of course, they loved Farmer Boy. And what happens? They're getting up early in the morning. They're bringing the wood in. They're feeding the animals. They're very active before they even start their breakfast. And then they're walking 3 miles to school and walking 3 miles home. And then they're, chopping the wood. So very active lifestyle. Okay, let's jump forward to the 1980s when I was in high school. Okay, when I had a report to do for a class, I would go out, I would pull up the garage door manually, I would get on my bike, I would ride to the library, I would walk over to the card catalog file, find the books, get the books, carry them home, and then type my report on a typewriter, which, by the way, takes more energy than a computer does. How about today? My kids' report, sit down at the computer, can be for hours, okay? Everything about our lifestyle has become very sedentary. You don't even roll down your car window anymore. So we have to actively, maybe pun intended, to work against that, to pay attention to how do we make activity part of our day. But it is very critical because of the nature of our lifestyle now is very sedentary. So what are some things we can do about that? Well, first of all, there are resources in your community as far as health and wellness and exercise. Exercise Physiologist, these are some certifying organizations, wellness coaches, health educators, sports medicine trainers, okay, physical therapists, registered nurses. These are all excellent resources in your communities and doctors, and you can see Mark is going to put up a link so you have that. But then where do you find these people? Many of them are in the seats of your congregation. And quite frankly, if they have these gifts, they would love to use them within the congregation. Hospital health education departments typically have people that do community health. They run community health type programs, so that's an excellent resource. Cardiac rehab programs within your hospital, same thing. They are running those types of programs, and oftentimes they have them for the communities, physical therapy agencies, obviously lots of health clubs. Most communities have some sort of health club. Okay, another thing that I would like to talk about is a book by this woman, Miriam Nelson, Strong Women Stay Young. And it is an excellent, she's done tons of research, and realize that as people age, it's not that they necessarily have to lose their strength. What happens is they become more inactive, and it becomes a vicious circle. And so it is especially important as we age to be active. So this is an excellent resource, an excellent book. From that have started many programs throughout the United States. I know in Janesville we had the local community college, the hospital health education department. They all ran programs specifically. And so if in your area you can either search Strong Women, Strong Bones, or Strong Women, Strong Bodies, you can find these programs, and they are a great program and an excellent resource. So I know you guys may have some other resources too that you've used, and so I would love for you, if you have resources that you have found as far as health and wellness and exercise, that you type those to Mark, and then we can talk about those and share some of those at the end. But here is another excellent resource that you have within your community. So obviously, I'm not suggesting that you use your sanctuary, although, our toddlers, our little kids use that on Sunday morning as they run around for activity. But what spaces might you have in your church hallways? If you're associated with the school, you might even have a gym. But in the winter in the north, it's sometimes harder to exercise outside. Quite frankly, in the summer in the south, it's hard to exercise outside. So what if you had times of day where you opened those hallways, where people within your community were invited to come join you? And one of the things, sometimes it's hard for people to come to churches if they're not familiar, but they might be desperate enough looking for a place to exercise in the winter. And it's like, hey, this church has their doors open. I can go, walk the halls. And all of a sudden they become familiar faces. They become familiar with their building. Is that a door, a path to their heart that ultimately, will open the door for sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ and salvation with them? And once again, with our older adults, okay, this gives them time to socialize with other people. Hey, I know that as a young mom, I loved mentors. I still love mentors. But, we have, Amy, who may be, 59, 60, 69, her family's not in the community. And we got a young mom with some kids, and she is there walking, with the stroller, and all of a sudden those two hook up and they become, a connection for each other. They help each other. And, at the same time they're exercising. And so once again, trying to establish those connections among people. Another thing is community places. Maybe you invite people to come join you to exercise and the community at a park at, say, 10 o'clock on Tuesday morning, or maybe at 3:30, maybe when school gets out. Can you imagine if instead of teenagers going home and sitting on Netflix or sitting on their screens, they're out exercising for an hour, or even as we gather, maybe some families, or so a lot of connections that can be made. And so this little picture of this trail is a wonderful place that I found. This is actually a piece of property that Concordia High School owns, that they have someone built a trail for the cross-country team to practice on until they build their building. And this is a great trail. So the wildflowers were beautiful. But I have had a church where they actually had times where they set up a time at a park. People came, and it was fun to see the interactions. Once again, building those relationships that connect people with your church, that also then opens other doors for witnessing. Okay, so Mark, do you have anything you want to say right now, or are we going to just keep going?
No, I think keep going. People can add their location into the chat box, and then questions again, Q&A. Yeah, and then just keep going. Sounds good.
Okay, so one of the things, I set this program up as a Wheat Ridge ambassador, and this is a super fun way to reach out into your community. And I'm going to just tell you before I start the video. First of all, when you have older adults, and some of them may be newly retired adults that have a lot of skills and some time that they want to use and serve, they are excellent resources to put in charge of programs like this. So I'm going to go ahead and play the program. You may be asking yourself, how can my church implement an exercise program? First, choose a location to which people will collectively and figuratively walk, such as the place the youth are doing a mission project or a location of a congregation-supported missionary. Designate a coordinator who will be responsible for marketing and distributing the information to the congregation via the church website, newsletter, Facebook page, or other news source. Determine a time frame for this walk-to program, either until the goal location is reached or for a specific time period, such as 12 weeks. Encourage each person in your congregation to participate by walking or exercising most days of the week and keeping track of the exercise on a daily log sheet. Experts recommend at least 150 minutes per week of moderately intense exercise. Ask each participant from your congregation to invite another person, such as an extended family member, coworker, or friend to join him or her in exercise. These people will also participate in the church's walk-to event. Choose a bookkeeper who will gather each participant's name, email, and other contact information. In addition, the bookkeeper will be responsible for tallying the grand total of everyone's minutes and weekly marking the progress on a map placed in a location for everyone to see. Each week, generate an email that will be sent to each participant. Include a motivational exercise tip and a Bible verse to focus on for the week. Wheat Ridge Ministry Ambassador Sue Murdy can be a source for this information. At the end of your goal, the coordinator will plan a celebration event, inviting all who participated. Hopefully, this will be a time to welcome people, some who might be unchurched, to feel comfortable with your church and open new doors to fellowship with Christ. By this walk-to program, not only can you help provide wellness to your church can provide health and hope to the community in the name of Jesus Christ. Okay, so Wheat Ridge has become We Raise in a different organization, but Mark is going to give my email address at the end, and I am happy. I have a weekly, I believe I have 12 weeks worth of just little exercise tips and kind of physical stewardship emails that you can adopt and send out from your church. So if anyone is interested in those, I am happy to forward those to you. Mark, I don't think those are on the ALOA site, are they?
No.
Okay. But anyway, I am happy to share those with you. For example, one of the churches that did this, Peace Lutheran in Columbus, Nebraska, ended up walking over almost 8,978 miles and raised over $3,000 for their mission trip. So a lot of really cool things that can happen with this. And we'll talk more about this at the end if we have extra time.
Now, let me just break in. I just posted, there's a bunch of files that talk about Peace Lutheran's results, the things they used. I did this in the church myself, very well received. People walked more than they thought they were going to walk through this program. It was great.
Well, and I know with Peace too, it's like it was fun, the relationships that were built. And I love that part of it also. Okay. So I'm going to just talk for just a couple minutes about exercise, and I'm going to also talk about exercise for older adults, but I want you to think about this for yourself, because once again, as church leaders, people follow you. You are the leader, and this is an important part of physical stewardship. God has blessed us with these incredible bodies that are fearfully and wonderfully made, and they are made to move. So we know from exercise research there are three things that are statistically significant for maintaining an exercise program long term. So one is identifying your benefits and barriers. And of course, I can tell you right now what every audience tells me And the biggest piece of the puzzle is time. Now, here's the thing. With our older adults, some of them do have more time than they had before, and so that's not necessarily a barrier for them. And like I talked about, combining your exercise with other things that you want in your life that are priorities. Maybe you go out and exercise and listen to praise songs. You can listen to a lot of Bible chapters in a 30-minute walk. It's a great time to connect with your family. If you have teenagers and they're not really telling you much about their life, go out walking with you. For some reason, when you walk side by side, at least with teenage boys, they tell it all. So try to combine it with other things. But what the psychologists tell us, we all have 24 hours in the day. We do what is our priority. So it's important to understand the benefits of exercise. Okay, so particularly for our older adults, if they don't exercise, they are continually going to get older. They're going to continually get weaker. It is so important for them to continue to exercise. And one of the things that particularly if you're out doing a home visit, the thing to remember is that just because someone's a shut-in doesn't mean they're completely inactive. Now, they may be sitting in a chair, but the reality is they may be able to get up. So I would encourage you, invite them to get up. Go sit outside on the porch. I'm going to talk a little bit about nature and the positive effects of nature. Have them move to a different spot, maybe even walk down the block with them. There's probably not people that are doing that with them, and the reality is they may be fearful of falling or things like that. But that is a huge way to help them to be a little bit physically active. With my patients, I have had people in my weight loss program, literally they were in wheelchairs. And every 30 minutes, they would set their clock and they would get up out of their wheelchair and walk to the door and back. That is all they could do. I had one lady do that. She was ecstatic because she was able to go visit her friend. They let her off at the door. And it was, took her about 15 minutes to actually get to this lady's apartment. You and I would have done it very quickly. But she was so thrilled that by doing that, just getting up in her apartment, walking around, what she could achieve. So keep in mind, it's not necessarily, we're not going for the 45 to 60 minutes, but any activity is so important. Okay, benefits. We know that there are so many benefits to exercise. Health-wise, physically, almost every organ, every system in the body benefits by exercise. We know that you look better, you feel better, cognitively, you think better. So just a bazillion benefits to exercise. Okay, another important factor for maintaining exercise long-term is exercise diary or that accountability. There are so many apps that you can do it. You can write it on your calendar. I was at a conference. Okay, we have the magic bullet for weight loss. You could have heard a pin drop in that room. What is it? Big time researcher said. Exercise diary and food diaries. Every single study since 1969 has shown us that if people will do that, they will lose weight. Okay, so accountability, very important. Third thing is a piece of home exercise equipment. We found that particularly in the North, that was very important. But here's the point. What you need is a place to exercise when you can't exercise outside. Once again, this goes back to if there are times that you have places within your physical church building that you can say, these are open to the public, come and walk. That's an important resource. Okay, so Mark's going to put up these links. It's a exercise log that if you want to use that, you can use that. The fit guidelines that we're going to talk about in just a minute. But also the activity guidelines, if you're interested in that. The one for older adults is on page 68. What's interesting is it's essentially the same as just adults in general with a couple exceptions. And one is the importance of doing balance type exercises, because that is obviously as people get older, that's an important part. So a very simple one is just to have them stand next to a chair and see if they can lift one leg and balance on that leg. I'm just looking over the guidelines. Another thing is also, if they can't do the 150 minutes that we're going to talk about, any amount of activity is better than no activity. So this is thinking back to the shut-ins that may not be capable of doing a ton, but being active. And once again, trying to think, Every hour, can you move around? That is really important. And a lot of health benefits with less activity than you might think. Okay, another thing to think about, then the other guideline for older adults is that they may have to adapt to chronic conditions. So for example, someone with arthritis, they may do more frequent activity for shorter amount of time. Now here's the trick. They probably hurt all the time. And so in their mind, they're thinking, if I exercise, I am gonna hurt more. I don't wanna exercise. In reality, if they stop exercising, that threshold's gonna get lower and lower and lower. So one thing that can be helpful for people with chronic pain is to rate your pain before you exercise on a scale of 1 to 4. Then as you're exercising, rate that pain again. Because most of the time what people realize is that as they're exercising, their pain doesn't get worse. It stays the same. And oftentimes it actually gets slightly better. Okay, what I do tell people is if they're exercising and the pain is getting worse, then they probably obviously need to stop. And then hopefully they can work with their doctor on some things that might help that a little bit. But like I said, to evaluate and realize that exercise most of the time in chronic pain doesn't make it worse. And so, yeah, they have the pain, but they're going to have the pain at rest anyway. So they might as well be exercising, which helps them to be able to do more functionally. Okay, frequency, intensity, time, fit. Okay, so really our frequency, 5 to 6 times per week of aerobic type exercise. That means aerobic with oxygen using large muscle groups, walking, biking, swimming. And another thing is for older adults, sometimes if they have problems with walking or whatever, there can be water aerobics. People love that. And that's a way that they can get a lot of exercise in a little bit lower intensity. A lower impact. Plus 2 to 3 times a week of strength training. They can use weights at home. They can use TheraBands, a lot of exercise places. A lot of places what do I want to say? Community living places for older people will have exercise rooms and even exercise times that will use some strength training. The Strong Women Stay Young programs use strength training. The trick is look at your calendar on Sunday night, schedule when you're going to do your exercise. So for your older people, for you too, because now they have time, but then there's going to be a tendency sometimes when they don't have anything specifically scheduled to kind of miss that opportunity. So to schedule it. Intensity, really, if you're thinking of a scale of 1 to 10, 1 doing nothing, 10 working as hard as you can possibly work, kind of a 6 to 8 or a moderate. And although this seems kind of general, research has shown when you match that up to what people are rating, using this rating scale, when they're doing stress testing and we're identifying the exact target heart rate, about 96% of the time, if you're using 6 to 8 or moderate, you are exactly where you should be target heart rate wise. The other thing is with our older adults, don't get caught up in this. Just move. Moving is the most important part. Okay, you're really looking at about 30 to 60 minutes per day. Remember, we talked about a 5 to 6 times per week. Part of that is really focused if you're exercising intensely. So if you're out running every day, then the reality of it is you need to have a rest day. For most of us, for general activity, not that big of a deal. The other thing is if you're taking a rest day, that helps prevent burnout also. Okay, so generally speaking, 30 to 60 minutes a day, 150 to 300 minutes per week is the recommendation by almost every exercise organization and also the national guidelines. And that is the same for older adults too. Okay, I'm just gonna go back and say one thing. So if one of the barriers for you as a church leader, church worker is time, one of the things you can think about, let's think about 2 miles. Okay, you wanna get the benefits of 2 miles. Well, if you're older and maybe a little bit slower, it might take you 40 to 50 minutes to do that 2 miles. But for example, if you're younger and in better shape and you could run that 2 miles, then you can do that same amount of exercise in a faster amount of time. So you may be able to do it in 20 minutes. So one of the things, there's a lot of emphasis on more, high intensity type exercise to help save time. So that's something personally that you might think about if you're limited on time. Can you do it at a little faster rate? Or can you also, it's high intensity interval training. So you go high intensity for a few minutes and then you go a little bit slower, then high intensity again. So that's just another thing to think about. Okay, another thing is standing desk. This was a woman from Wheat Ridge. She got a standing desk. She absolutely loved it. So something to think about for your older adults. Are they in their homes? Do they tend to sit, watch TV, working on their computer, whatever they're doing? And one thing is to think about how can they make areas around their house, and the realization that every 60 minutes I want to be up, moving around, but also are there places that they could make standing desks? So when we moved to Texas, it's great because I have a counter that is standing height. And so when I'm working, I am constantly alternating between, I don't like to sit very much, but between my desk and then I move my computer to my what I call my standing desk, which is just my counter. Same thing for you in your offices or in your homes. Think about where are places that you can use instead of just sitting, but doing some standing. And this is another example how this person took and adjusted their office, the height of that adjustable thing to higher so he could alternate. Okay, Mark, any other comments right now or questions or?
No questions or comments, but let's do the poll. You ready for that?
Okay, yes.
Okay, I'm going to, hang on, I got to pick a poll. I'm going to do this one. Launch the poll. So you'll see a poll on your screen and just answer all the questions, true or false. And I'm kind of watching, giving you enough time for everybody to complete it. Yeah, let me just make sure everybody can see this thing. Okay, here we go. Some people, yeah, there's people voting now. So vote early and often, as they say in Chicago. We got a little more time. Want to give everybody a chance to get their 2 cents worth in.
I'm just going to say, I know there were some people who said they couldn't come. So if you're watching this after the fact, go ahead and think about your answers for each of these questions.
Yeah, I'm going to scroll so that they can see the rest of the questions there.
Oh, perfect.
All right, about another few seconds. We almost got everybody voted here. All right, I think I'm going to end the poll right about one more second or two. There's just a couple still.
Okay,
right.
And the other thing, Mark, that I would like to see too, if people actually put where they're from, I'd like to hear about some of the states.
You can do that in the chat window. I've seen some already do that. All right, we're going to end the poll, and I'm going to share the results. This is the results that you have. And we'll share a little bit, Karen. Sue, go ahead.
Okay. So let's see. Mark taught me how to do this the other day, I think. I want to move. Shoot, I want to move this to my to the side.
Yeah, because people can do that. Move the screen to the side. We're going to put this up and down a little bit. You're in control of where that little window shows up.
Okay, remind us again how to do that, Mark.
Well, up at the top where it says the word polls is, that little gray bar, put your mouse there, click and hold, and move it over.
Perfect. All right, that's what I needed. Okay, so the first one, no pain, no gain. If you were a football player in high school, man alive, you heard that. And sometimes the hardest thing that I have in working with patients is people who were high school athletic people, because that's what they heard, no pain, no gain, that you have to exercise hard. That is in fact false. If you are having pain, that is your body telling you, don't do that. I had a patient that was a high school football player, finally got him to where he was doing moderate exercise. He's doing about 40 minutes, 35 to 40 minutes almost every single day, 5 to 6 times a week, pretty faithfully. Went and some athletic trainer told him he wasn't exercising intensely enough or long enough. Well, that fed right into his no pain, no gain. And he exercised more intensely and longer for about 1 week. And then he never exercised again in his life. And it drove me crazy because the goal is moderate exercise And you shouldn't have pain. If you're having pain, that is your body warning you, hey, too much. And it looks like 82% of you got that. So the other ones were football players, probably. Okay. I'm thinking I have to get rid of my poll to move forward.
Oh, okay. I'll stop sharing.
Okay. Nope, I got it, actually.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
So the next one was of the 10,800 minutes available per week. Is that a reasonable amount of time for an exercise plan? And the answer to that is true. And oops, I missed one.
Yeah, you skipped one there. Go back up.
Okay, I'll come back to that other one. But anyway, the point is that, yes, that is absolutely true. And really, remember, we're looking at 150 to 300 minutes. That amount of time, that 200 minutes per week, is 2% of your total time. It's like, wow, can we give 2% of our time back to God in the form of physical stewardship? It's really breathtaking when you stop and think about that. So yeah, 150 to 300 minutes, but 200 is great. Okay, so we're gonna go back to exercise gives you more energy. Yeah, let's see if I can do that. So the answer to that, everybody agreed exercise gives you more energy. So the question is why when you come home from work and sit down on the couch and you say, I don't have enough energy to exercise, you have to sit there and go, but I know if I get up out of this couch and go exercise, I am going to have more energy. So the trick is don't even plop down until you do your exercise. But especially for our older adults, you know, one of their complaints is, I just don't have enough energy. And if you hear them say that, then it's time for you to say, hey, are you exercising? Are you being active? Because that is going to help you have more exercise or more energy. So we know that that is an important piece of the puzzle. Okay. The next one is for every pound of body fat loss, there is a 4-pound reduction of pressure on the joints. Do any of you have achy joints? Do any of your older parishioners have achy joints? Guess what? Isn't this amazing? This is absolutely true. And in fact, some of our orthopedic doctors say that there's even more of an effect than that. So the reality of it is really important. When people are overweight, the amount of pressure on their joints, but also think about for your other organs too. So we're going to talk a little bit more about weight loss here in a couple of minutes, but this is really a key point. And with our obesity program, oftentimes the orthopedic doctor would send, before they would do surgery, would send their patient to us to do their weight loss first. And I can't tell you the number of times that they did their weight loss and they didn't even need surgery. So pretty awesome, pretty impressive. Okay, this is a good Lutheran question. Beer is a thirst quencher. Okay, I can't get my screen to scroll up here. Oh.
Well,
tell me the results of the poll, Mark.
It said everyone was false. It's not a good thirst quencher.
Yes, and so that's good. So I'm glad that you understand a beer is okay, but it is not good for rehydrating because the effect on the liver, the amount of water that's needed to process that overrides whatever amount you take in. So, okay, I'm going to close my poll here. Okay, so we are going to talk about a plan for health and wellness, and particularly fitness and all that. Mark, will you close the poll for me?
I did already. No, is it still there?
It's still on my screen.
Okay. Oh, stop sharing. Okay. Has it stopped yet?
Yep.
You can. Is it gone?
Okay, hang on. I'm just going to call my tech person. Sam, come here.
And you can also, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a...
Oh, it's gone. It's gone. I'm good now. Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to talk about plan. Okay, so the P for the plan. What do you think the P stands for when it comes to health and wellness? Okay, it's portion control. I don't know. Did we have some guesses in the chat, Mark? Did anybody respond to what the P stood for?
No.
Okay, so P is portion control. Okay, so the reality of it is, in America, in the United States, we have too large of portions with food and too small with activity. So I want you to think about this and think about in your own lives. Think about for your older adults. Think about the number of social events, perhaps, that everybody brings their favorite dish and it's super delicious, our potlucks. Okay, even when you go out to eat in America today, in the United States, the portion size is huge. So when you think about like a serving size of, say, protein, chicken, steak, or whatever, it's really the size of your fist. Okay, most of the time it's a lot more than that. And so ever since my husband and I have gotten married 29 years ago, when we go out to eat, we split a meal, initially much to his dismay. But anyway, and we would each get a salad. You know, and at the end of the meal, we'd evaluate. Are we hungry? No, we're not. And on our 25th wedding anniversary, I said to my husband, think about all the calories we have saved the 25 years of marriage and the money. But anyway, so think about cutting down your portion sizes, particularly of junk type foods, and think about increasing your activity. Okay, next in plan is the L. I want you to think about what might be the L in health and wellness. So the L is actually leave it. You know, James says, flee from evil. Okay, so how do we leave it? So what that might mean is if potato chips are your favorite food or Oreos are your favorite food, leave them in the grocery store. Do not buy them and bring them home and sit them on your counters because, of course, then the temptation is going to be there to eat them. Now, this isn't saying that you never have them. It's just try to clean up the temptations, if you will, so that it's very intentional, very portion controlled. I always tell people never leave food out on the counter. Put it away where you can't see it. When you're done in the kitchen after supper, leave. Okay, one of the biggest problems with our obese population is they start eating at 4:30 and they continue eating for hours and hours. So get out of the house, go walk around the block, something that signals I am done eating. Okay, same thing with inactivity. Okay, don't even sit on that couch. Don't even open your computer until you have gone to do some exercise. The next one is A. What do you think about A? What do you think the A is for health and wellness? The A stands for accountability. Okay, and I told you about that one experience with the top researcher saying this is the most important thing for weight loss. Okay, so accountability in as far as exercise goes, obviously is your exercise diary. As far as food goes, is food diaries. And I always tell people, if you have a time of day that is your hard time of day, that's when you need to do a food diary. To do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that's pretty intense. Most people have a hard time maintaining that. But if you are a person who on the weekend, you know, binge eats, then do your food diary on the weekend. If your bad time is after 8 o'clock at night, do your food diary then. If you have a particular food that's your nemesis, you know, just record in your food diary when and how much of that you've had. For example, sodas or whatever. Okay, so one of the things that can be very helpful is to have an accountability partner. And so that person might call and say, whatever your weakness is, how many sodas did you have last week? Or with exercise, how many days of the week did you exercise last week? Or how many minutes did you exercise last week? So I strongly encourage you to have an accountability partner. And maybe you are the accountability partner for, let's say, your shut-ins. Maybe every time you go see them, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to encourage you every hour. Make sure you get up, go to the bathroom, switch to a different chair, walk around your kitchen counter. And next time I come back, I'm going to ask you how many times you've done that. Or whatever. So think about ways that you can have an accountability partner as far as food and exercise. And then think about ways that perhaps you can help your older adults, and maybe you partner them up together or whatever. N, what do you think N stands for? Okay, N is for nurture. So in our culture, a lot of nurturing comes from food. And I really struggled with this because I wanted to, like, when my kids came in the door, I wanted to, like, welcome them and give them chocolate chip cookies. But I realized that was not a healthy habit for them. And so I worked really hard to nurture them by when they walked in the door to give them a big hug and to teach them other ways to decompress than food. And I would give them a snack. We tried to work on healthy snacks, maybe cheese or veggies, carrots, apples, or whatever. And then also to teach them how to take a little break from their day. And we'd go walk around the block. And that's when I realized, man, when you go walk, you really hear a lot of what your kids have to say. And a very easy thing to do is this is a coaching technique. It's a 2-minute talk time. Tell me about whatever, fill in the blank. And you might do this with your shut-ins too. Tell me about your week. Tell me about what you think about X, Y, or Z. Tell me how you've seen God this last week, whatever. And you just listen to what they have to say and reflect back to them what you hear them saying. And then if there's kind of a pause in the conversation, you can say, well, tell me more about that. So that's an excellent nurturing type thing that you can do. But in our culture, once again, we nurture food. With food, we nurture by, we think that somehow sitting and vegging out, on social media is somehow nurturing, when we got to really explore, is that really the case? So really think about what are nurturing things for yourself and for your loved ones and for the people that you are leading. All right, so this plan, I actually wrote a blog post about this. So Mark is going to give you the link to that. It was actually one that I actually wrote for Concordia Publishing House. So I'll give you that. So I'm going to just pause for a minute and see if anybody has any specific questions or things they want to talk about. Please go ahead and give those chats to Mark, or those questions to Mark. Okay, so we got about 8 minutes or so. And I'm going to just keep talking about some other kind of wellness exercise things unless people have questions. If there's things people want to discuss, I'm happy to discuss them. But one of the things sometimes people go, oh, well, is morning the best time to exercise? True or false? Well, the reality of it is any time of day that you are going to exercise is the best. Excuse me. So, for example, for some people, morning is a good time because they can get up, exercise, go take their shower, they're done for the day. Or if that's their usual exercise time and something comes up, they have time later in the day they can make up for that. But really, the goal is just do it, whatever works for you. This is a good one. Exercise increases appetite. Okay, so this is a very interesting question. And by the way, there's a lot of false information out there. Okay, exercise increases appetite at a very low end and at a very high end. Moderate exercise actually decreases appetite. So let me tell you. So when I am going into the hospital room to see my cardiac patient after he's had open heart surgery and he feels horrible and he doesn't want to eat, if I can get him up moving a little bit, that is going to help increase his appetite. Okay, so once again, if you're seeing shut-ins, they just don't have any appetite, and then they're not eating, and then they're feeling frailer because they're not getting the nutrition their body needs, and it's a vicious cycle. Encourage them to get up and move around a little bit. For those of us who struggle with our weight and we need to have decreased appetite, moderate exercise helps decrease appetite. Now, if you are a marathon runner and you are training for a marathon, you can believe that you are going to have an increased appetite. So at some point when you start getting to a higher amount of time and intensity in exercise, that might be an increase in appetite. And so that was one thing a couple of years ago. I was doing a lot of running, and all of a sudden I was so hungry. It's like, I needed to kind of moderate my exercise so that I was back to a zone where it was decreasing my appetite instead of increasing my appetite. In other words, when diet alone is used for weight reduction, a person's metabolism slows down, and some of the weight loss is muscle. So if you're doing a weight loss program, definitely, you need the exercise so that you're not losing muscle mass, that you're not losing muscle mass, that you're just losing fat. And this is just exercise increases HDL cholesterol. Yes, HDL cholesterol, if you remember, is the good cholesterol, the garbage men that go around to get rid of the bad stuff. But once again, we know, so, and this is just to point out, exercise helps so many risk factors for heart disease, which is the #1 killer still in the United States. Things like lowering blood pressure, lowering cholesterol, increasing the good cholesterol, diabetes, huge for controlling diabetes. I've had patients who get on a regular exercise program that actually were able to come off most of their medications, and some of even all of them. So just all those risk factors, exercise is so important. Okay, just one other little wellness issue that I'm going to talk about, or a couple here. Run hard, rest well. You know, we are so good at running hard, and especially as church workers, right? We run hard, but do we rest well? And Brenda Dank has developed an incredible program called Run Hard, Rest Well. It's just fabulous. And I actually have done some training and am now available to do retreats. So one of the beauty of having accountability, like we talked about with exercise and food, and also Run Hard, Rest Well, it's great to have accountability. So really ideal situation is to have your team, your staff do this together. There's an excellent 4.5-hour retreat that is just packed with stuff that will help you. And also within that retreat, there is some time of rest. Anyways, so thinking about what rejuvenates you. And so once again, even with your older adults, sometimes there are a lot of transitions in life as an older adult. Think about what, ask them, what rejuvenates you, and how can you get hooked up with some of that? Once again, some of this maybe if they've been in a full-time working situation, now they're suddenly they're home, how do you utilize that? And man, doing some of those mentoring, intergenerational things are so important. And doing it over exercise is great fun. Nature is an important thing. I just did a talk on depression for some high school girls, and the depression among the high school girls has dramatically increased. But it was interesting because one of the contributing factors, believe it or not, is called nature deficit disorder, because our kids are inside so much with screen time. And so I was just looking briefly this morning, thinking about, I wonder if there's some specific research for older adults. And so there was a study done, I think in 2015, the British Medical Journal reported on it. I'm just going to read a little section of it. It says, a high exposure to natural environments, green space and gardens in communities was associated with fewer mental disorders among older adults. So once again, you're visiting someone, it's not raining or snowing, ask them, can we go outside to the porch? Can we go outside to the back patio and sit outside and do your home visit with them outside? So think about ways for that. And then also just great stress management technique, deep breathing. It sounds so basic, and yet it takes away some of the stress that's going on in the body. It's all good. So a nice deep breath in through your nose. Just fill your lungs, 5, 6, 7 seconds in, and then hold it for a couple seconds, and then just slowly discharge that. You can do it through pursed lips. Just a very basic, excellent wellness technique.
Hey, Karen Sue, we have a quick question.
Okay, perfect.
What kinds of exercise are good for older adults with balance issues?
Okay, so once again, if they're in a situation where they can get in a pool, that is great. But even things where if they can do chair type exercises, even within their house, if they could walk around where they're, where they can almost like set up chairs where they can kind of go from one chair to, the backs of the chair to walk from one person to the next. Any sort of home exercise equipment is excellent, because like if you have a treadmill, you could hang on. If you have a stationary bike, you could hang on. If you have a elliptical training, you're hanging on. So those are some things. But if they had balance issues, I would strongly encourage them. Within the community, there are a lot of programs. Most communities have resources that they can find a balance program. And if they go to that, they'll be taught balance exercise, increase their balance. And once again, with balance, it's the same thing. The less you do, the worse the balance becomes. So it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And like I said, even standing up, standing on one foot, holding the back of a chair, stepping up and down a step is another thing.
I listened to a very good presentation that was about a 45-minute long presentation on falls. The consequence of falls is huge on older adults.
Yes.
I'm considering that as a topic for one of these webinars and finding a good resource of somebody who knows well in this world. And so that's one of the things we're thinking about because it's such a big deal.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I was actually talking to my sister a little bit because she's also an exercise physiologist. And what she does is work with older adults to prevent falls, to increase balance and all that stuff. Yeah. I said, you should do one of the webinars, but I don't know if she has a conflict with her work. But anyway, other comments or questions? And once again, working sometimes a couple visits from like a physical therapist and a home in-home type visit or a nurse in that person's home that can evaluate that person, a couple visits can get them a lot of bang for their buck because then they know what they can individually do in their home.
Yeah. Now you have the church exercise plan up. I just want to affirm that it was a great program in the church I did it with. We did it twice, and the Peace Lutheran had a great experience with it. We put lots of files up on the chat box. You'll get those in another file later. Really do take a look at those, and it's a wonderful way to get people moving and talking to one another at the same time.
Yes, it's a great intergenerational thing. And, obviously exercise is my passion. I would love to help make this happen in your church. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to email me.
Yeah, and just quickly, I don't know if we said it, the walk to implies you pick a place that's of interest to the church. So in other words, hey, we're going on a mission trip this summer to Guatemala. Well, okay, let's walk to Guatemala as part of the prep stuff. So it has its interesting connections to the place as well.
Well, and the one at Peace, they specifically prayed for the mission trips, and it was really fun to hear, as the people came back and just talked about how smoothly their mission trip had gone. And once again, that intergenerational of, the older adults knowing, hey, we are praying for our youth and those connections. And it was just, it's really, there's so many good things that come out of it. Okay, so these are my 4 boys. This was a number of years ago because my youngest is the one at Concordia High School. He's officially completed his junior year. He is now a senior. I got a grandbaby on the way. One's married and another one getting married this summer. So a lot of excitement in our family. But okay, last thing. So Mark will put up the link to my blog spot. There's a ton of information on there. As you go back through the links, there's lots of exercise, encouragement type things. Also, I am a speaker, and you can go to the WLI website where I'm on their speakers bureau, and Mark has that link. But also, I put up the link for WLI because right now they are actually doing an intergenerational initiative right now. So you might enjoy looking at that also. Okay, and finally, that's my information. So I don't know if there are other things, Mark.
No, just one thing. I forgot to ask you this, Karen Sue, but if you could send me the file of the slides, we'll make sure the slides also get on.
Okay, perfect.
Accessible. So what I'm going to do in the next hour or so is put this recording into a YouTube video. We'll have all the links. Everybody that's on the call, and even those who couldn't make it but are registered, will get an email in the next 2 days with links to find all this stuff. It includes the files of all the links in the chat box, etc. So all this stuff will be available to you on the Aloha webpage. You'll have a link for that.
Awesome. And just one more thing that I want to say, that if you are a church worker and you would like some encouragement in your health and wellness journey, sometimes just a 10 or 15-minute problem-solving phone call can be very helpful. So don't hesitate to reach out to me if you just want some help in that.
Great. Hey, thanks very much, Karen Sue. We appreciate your investment in this. I know it's a passion of yours, and that comes through in your presentations. I'm just going to close it out. It's just a little over an hour. So, yeah, appreciate you folks coming. Lord's blessings to all of you. And look for an email in the next 2 days that gets you the links to all the resources, the slides, etc.
And happy exercising.
Exercise, that's right. All right, blessings, everybody.
Bye now.
Take care.